The latest version of the Veterans Committee meets this coming weekend for the Baseball Hall of Fame. They have 8 players on the contemporary baseball era ballot. And once again, just as it's been for the past decade on the writers' ballot, the players with PED ties and other issues take center stage. And I want you to think this through with me. With Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, Rafael Palmeiro, Albert Bell, a lot of energy is going to be spent on how much does the bad stuff matter? And there's different levels of bad, but it's bad behavior you need to rationalize. I hope instead this committee focuses on how much does the good stuff matter. There are 3 players on the ballot that don't need their behavior excused. If I'm in that room, I'm voting Fred McGriff, Dale Murphy, Don Mattingly, and I'm feeling great about it. And I'm feeling great about baseball. So today, let's give Don Mattingly a little Cooperstown justice. We're probably aware of the basics here now. From 1984 to 1987, Don Mattingly was the best player in the American League and best hitter in all of baseball. A stunning slash line of .337, the batting average, .381 on base, and slugging percentage of .560. In that period, with guys like Mike Schmidt, Wade Boggs, Dale Murphy, Don Mattingly was #1 in all of baseball in OPS plus, slugging, RBIs, doubles, and total bases. Now, Mattingly was the best player in the game from 1984 to 1987, but he was still dominant from 84 to 89. Here are the total base leaders over that span. Mattingly leads George Bell by 120 total bases and Kirby Bucket by 174. Mattingly is the #1 slugger in the game in those 6 years, and it's not even close. But I want to focus on why people who saw him play speak of him in such awe. Mattingly was the #1 slugger while also hitting .337 and having an elite contact rate. Mattingly had more walks than strikeouts in each of his peak 6 seasons and overall in his career. Think about that. Mattingly was the best power hitter in the game while also essentially hitting like Tony Gwynn. Here are the top slugging percentages from 1984 to 1987 and their strikeout rates. The top 3 are Mattingly, Schmidt, and Dale Murphy. You can see them right there. They all have high strikeout rates. If you look at the top 5, George Bell, Darryl Strawberry, look at them. Even George Bell, relatively low his strikeout rate. It's 11.7%. It's more than double Don Mattingly's of 5.3. Double. Everyone else is striking out a lot. Don Mattingly not striking out at all. That's why his at-bats were so special. He was striking out 33, 35 times a year while leading the league in slugging, RBIs, and total bases, and also hitting for an absurd batting average. Think of it this way. You have an image of Tony Gwynn. Right there he is in front of you. One of the best batting average hitters in the history of baseball. In that same time period, Tony Gwynn hit .341. Mattingly hit .337, very close. They had essentially the same strikeout rate. Both are in the top 5 in strikeout rate in the major leagues and phenomenal contact hitters. The difference? Mattingly is slugging 100 points higher. Gwynn is slugging .457. Mattingly slugged .560. Mattingly hit like Tony Gwynn, the master, but with league-leading power. That is why he's seen as extra special for those who watched him while he was playing. Now, Mattingly injured his back, and after that great 6-year stretch, of course, he was not the same power hitter. So the voters these days are always saying, well, he didn't do it long enough. I have a question for that. Who says? It doesn't stipulate that anywhere in the voting. Let me tell you why we think that way. In the 1930s and 40s, when the baseball writers were first trying to figure out who belonged in this new Baseball Hall of Fame, they didn't have Baseball Reference. They didn't have a baseball encyclopedia. They couldn't go year by year through a player's record without getting team records. They had a player's totals. His years, his batting average, his World Series record, his reputation. That's it. So, years of service, total hits, total home runs, total pitching wins. That was basically the criteria. It had to be. We've come a long way since then. We can go year by year now and compare the peak of the great players. So how many players have ever been known, like Mattingly, as the best player in baseball for any period of time? There aren't many. Mattingly was one of them. And if it's 8 years of greatness that you want, because it seems to land around there, how about this? Here are 8 years. These are the runs created leaders in baseball from 1984 to 1991. Mattingly, even with 2 to 4 years of diminished output with the bad back, is 4th in all of baseball. And do you notice anything around the names, about those names that are surrounding Mattingly? Look at all those names. They're all in the Hall of Fame. Tim Raines, Cal Ripken, Kirby Puckett are all below Mattingly in that 8-year stretch. Here's something else. Mattingly's career WAR is 43, and WAR is where many begin and end their analysis these days. Well, I'm here to tell you that WAR total, dragged down by his defensive stats, is utter nonsense. I defend defensive statistics and I mock Gold Gloves more than anyone, but the defensive stats have Mattingly being a below-league average defensive player. That is complete hogwash. I'm using hogwash and nonsense a lot here, I know. Maybe defensive reputation matters a bit too much in Gold Glove voting, but you're telling me Don Mattingly won 9 Gold Gloves and he was a below-average defender? That doesn't make any sense. I've said this many times. Defensive stats for first base are sketchy. They still are. Take it with a grain of salt. In this case, throw it right in the trash. If the stats gave Mattingly proper credit, he'd be over 50 WAR easy. It'd make for a better Hall of Fame case. WAR is helpful, but don't let it overrule everything. Use your own thinking. And one last thing. You speak to most anyone in this game. They don't just like Don Mattingly. They hold him in the highest possible regard. His manager at the time, Buck Showalter, said he told any new player that came to the Yankees, watch him. Watch what he does. And that would be enough. We use the character clause as a negative. How about using it as a positive? How about honoring someone who brings positive memories to the sport instead of negative? Don Mattingly is seen as the standard by which a player and teammate should be measured. Put that up against, well, I'd like to see 2 more years of him being fully healthy. Is that really what it comes down to? Here's the list the voters will be looking at. I put it into 2 columns here. You have 5 guys that you'd have to factor in all sorts of things. Performance-enhancing drugs. Did he actually threaten someone? Did he tweet threaten someone? And put that up against the other players that are up there. You can go Mattingly, Murphy, McGriff, and you can honor those who brought honor to the game.